Welcome into another video. This one is going to be a little bit different. The community, you guys voted for a series on the playbook, and here it is. We're going to start looking at the Packers offensive playbook. We're going to cover the foundation, the basics, the starting point of this Packers offense. Obviously, you can see here that it is a playbook from 2019, so it is quite old. So obviously things may have changed, but we'll obviously talk about that as we get through this series. So let's dive in right away. Now, the very first thing that we talk about in playbooks is obviously how you are going to operate. What is the procedure of the offense? Because we know that the league is process driven. So at the very start is going to be the huddle and the cadences, right? So huddle, obviously how the offense huddles up and gets the play call before they go out into formation. And then we have the cadence, how we start the play. And obviously that's something that is going to be very important, and we'll get into the verbal cadence, which you hear on TV all the time. But we're starting with the huddle procedure. All right, we can see the basics of the huddle. We can see how it is organized here. And I'll show a picture here in just a little bit of who is playing what position. So if you're ever at a game in person and you see their huddle, you can figure out what position they play based on the huddle, because they make sure that the huddle is clean, right? Center obviously is going to be 5 yards from the line of scrimmage. We see that offensive line, usually their back is facing towards the quarterback. They're just listening for the call, right? What is the pass protection? What is the run play? That's all the offensive line needs to know. So as soon as they hear that and the snap count, then they're ready to go jog to the line. So huddle's oval shaped, 5 yards from the line of scrimmage. This can change depending on the situation. You have a sugar huddle where it's going to be 3 yards and everyone's going to get closer to the line, right? Condensed formations get out quick, but that's not necessarily discussed at the very beginning of the playbook. Right? QB, they have to stay out of the huddle until the personnel changes are made. They have to echo the personnel. Usually on the sideline, there's going to be a yellow sign with a number on it, right? 11, 12, 10. That's going to be giving you the personnel group. And the QB has to echo that. He has to make sure he has the right personnel in the huddle, right? And in order to avoid a penalty, the QB cannot step into the huddle if there's 12 guys. All right, so huddle has to be clean. And of course, after everyone is in the huddle, QB can step in. Then we get all eyes on the quarterback. QB has complete control of the huddle, and he's going to give the play call, the snap counts. And if you're a player, if you're the X, for example, you missed something, you didn't hear what you're supposed to do, check. All right? Then the quarterback is going to repeat whatever the call was. Make sure that you know what you're doing, and then you got ready break. Everyone claps and gets to the line of scrimmage as quick as possible. So just giving an example of what this huddle looks like, right? So you got the offensive line, you've got the X, H, Q, B, F, Z, or Z, and Y. And if we pull up a picture here, you're going to see this is exactly what we've got. We got the X. This is Dobbs, right? So that's your X. You've got your H, which is your halfback. You've got your QB. You've got your F. You've got your Z. And then you've got your Y, right? So you can see against the Commanders, this is exactly how that huddle is operating. You got to make sure that procedure is clean, because if you can't pay attention to the small details like that, then things aren't going to go so well for you that year. Now, of course, you've got points of emphasis. Obviously, everyone is supposed to move with urgency, and you can see the way that the playbook is instructed. The key words are always going to be all caps and bold, right? Huddle reflects attitude, right? That's what we want to remember, reflects attitude, keep the huddle sharp. And this is how a play call goes, right? We know that the LaFleur offense, especially in the second half this last week with the Pittsburgh game, motion or shift is going to be the first thing, right? Shift to this or motion to this. And then it's going to be the formation call. All right, so you've got the formation and the strength. You can see some examples. We will, in a later video, go over all the formations. But we've got strong right, eye left, dice right, etc. Right? So that is the call of the formation. When we think about the calls that we hear on TV, You know, sometimes you'll get these little videos where maybe it's Sean Payton or whoever else, they're reading out this super long play. Everything is being read out because it's telling the players exactly what they need to know, right? The formation, the players need to know where they're lining up. Formation variation, ace, tight, close, right? That's changing the splits, the distance of the formation, right? Maybe we got gun right or gun right close, right? That's going to close off the formation and force the receivers to come a little bit further in to condense the formation. Then you've got a motion, you've got Z right, Y left. We'll go over the motions a little bit later. But of course, it's telling who, right, in the huddle, the Z is going to be going right, right? He's going to be starting on the left side of the formation. He's going to motion right. Then you've got the run concept or the pass pro. So 18 Zorro is a wide zone, which we'll talk about. 200 jet is a protection. And we'll eventually get into the run concepts and pass protection in later videos. And we got pass concept, steamer, which is a shock concept. You've got stick spacing and other types of pass concepts. And we'll dive into those in a lot more detail one-on-one in the future. And then we got snap count on 1, on 2, on color, on third color, and then you've got ready break. So all of this has to happen from the moment the last play stops. You've got 40 seconds. You've got to get all of this stuff in. You got to go ready break. You got to get to the line. You got to do the actual motions or the shifts, and then you got to get the play out. So there is a lot happening in the huddle that isn't really noticed to the average fan. All right, so then we get into the cadence. This is how we start a play. QB starts with setup. Everyone must be set. QB will give a color and 2-digit number to each side as long as we aren't on a quick cadence. A quick cadence would be like turbo, alpha, hurry, hurry. All right. Cadence must sound consistent between each quarterback. That's why you see in the playbook here at the bottom, you got a green 19, a green 19. That is just been what has been used for so long. And since Jordan Love was a backup quarterback to Aaron Rodgers, that cadence has to be consistent between each quarterback. All right. So with that cadence being consistent between all the quarterbacks, of course, whoever the backup for Jordan Love is right now is going to use that same cadence, right? So Malik Willis right now is going to be using that same green 19 cadence when he gets into the game, right? Cadence will be used as a weapon to keep the defense off balance. That is why you have so many different types of cadences, right? We're going to take a look. You've got your speed up cadences. You got alpha, turbo, hurry, hurry. You might hear this all the time on TV. Turbo, turbo. Anytime there is an audible, they will use a turbo count. All right. If there's a check at the line of scrimmage, you'll hear turbo, set hut. They're going on set. They're getting the ball out and starting the play. In your traditional cadence, we got 1, 2, 3. You can see when they're snapping each time, right? On 1, you've got the underline is where they're snapping it. All right. I think this is actually a typo. I think it should be here, right? Because it's not necessarily on the first color, because we can see here later it should be first color. So I think that is just a typo in this playbook. But yeah, you've got 1, 2, 3 is the number of huts that you have at the end of the cadence, right? So you start, set hut, everyone gets set. You're not going to say that until you do your shift, right? So if we think about the motion or shift, if there's a motion or shift at the start, you're going to do that first and then set hut, because you don't want a tight end putting his hand down and then having to shift, right? Because that might be considered a false start. Then you've got first color, set hut, green 19 on the first color. There you go. And you've got third color, set hut, green 19, set hut. Any number of huts, that's your hard count, right? You want as many huts as possible. And then blue, there we go, blue 58, it's on the blue. All right, so the third color, doesn't matter how many there are, right? We got 1, 2, 3, there you go, third color. We're snapping it on blue. All right, then you've got double count where you would switch it, right? So we've got green 19, and then we switch it to blue 58, blue 58. So that same color number combination, but that's your double count. And then triple This is a very long, I don't think that this is used very often, right? But triple count is going through a full cadence twice, and then the third time that you go through, you're snapping the ball. Statue trophy, this is always going to be used in timeout, delay a game, and a quarter situations, right? Trying to get the defense to jump off sides. We see that all the time on a third or fourth and short, and you got so many huts going off, but no one's moving. That's your statue or trophy call, right? And you've got your speed break, change of pace, out of the huddle, attack the line of scrimmage, get set with urgency. That's kind of what we saw with the sugar huddle that I mentioned earlier, right? You're gonna get out, doesn't matter what the cadence is, we're just gonna get out, show urgency, usually going to be used in the red zone. All right, we've got a few more things that we'll talk about. We've got the Audible system, the Audible Procedure. Obviously, at the very start of the playbook, how are we going to change plays to get into looks that we are going to have an advantage? All right, starting out, QB mechanics, obviously the audible. Anytime he's making a change, don't know why that went so large, but we've got easy, 66, turbo set out everything. If there's a change, there's an audible, it goes on turbo, right? So we're just going to have turbo set hut, get that ball out, and start the play. All right, so audibles, you might hear easy, then you know that the play is being changed. All right, so this is primarily when there's going to be all-out pressures. All right, now we got the Oscar. This is something that you've probably seen, right, or you've heard, right? Oscar. They're going to be flipping the play, right? This is going to be used in mirrored formations, right? So deuce, snug, dino, those are examples of mirrored formations, which we'll go over eventually, right? But this is just called in the huddle. So you can see down here in the play call, we got deuce right, 18 alert, Oscar. 18 alert, Oscar. That means we know in the cadence, if we hear Oscar at the line of scrimmage, we're flipping it the other way. Therefore, it's going to be 19. All right, it's going to be that 19 alert. It's not going to be 18 alert. And this is something that you see on TV. And anytime we hear the Oscar, they're flipping that play, and he's going to signal to the receivers. He's touching the ears. Right, we see this all the time. He's touching the ears. That's because they're flipping the play the opposite direction. So now when you're watching the game, you can kind of call that out. And as we go forward, we've got canning. Right, this one you hear all the time as well. Can. All right, that's in the huddle. There are two calls. All right, so this is an example. Trips right, 19 Wanda. Another wide zone call. Can, 18 support. All right, so trips right, 19 Wanda. That's going to be a run to the left. You got odd number. It's going to be a run to the left. Can, 18 support, a different run to the right. All right, so again, when he cans a play, we see that as well. Touching ears. He's alerting the receivers that we have switched the play. All right, because receivers aren't always going to be hearing the can. They're not always going to be hearing the Oscar. So that is going to be the signal to the receivers, hey, we're going to that second option. And then we got reload. So if he changes the play, you got can, reload, right? So originally they canned from 18 Wanda to 19 Wanda, but reloading meaning they're going to go back to the start, right? Because you could make an adjustment and then the defense makes an adjustment and now you have the advantage in the other situation. So you're going to flip it back to the original call, right? So this entire audible procedure is just making sure that you're putting your offense in the best situation possible. And there's a lot that rests on the QB's shoulders when they're doing this. All right, QB has to identify what the defense is doing. They have to make the right call of, hey, is this original play, is this going to work, or should we change it? All right, they change it, defense shifts. Actually, you know what? We should go back to the other one. So there's a lot on the quarterback's plate. Then we have the turbo package, and this is where you have coded plays. I don't have a list of their coded plays, but I know that they often use Cali, they use Jelly. You hear this, you've got Jerry as well, right? So each of these words, there's a code, whatever it is in terms of the personnel, the package that they have on the field. Each word is going to have a meaning for a play, right? So Cali, Jerry. Those words can be used from week to week and they might change, right? The play behind it might change. The word might stay the same. And this is just another way that the team, they are able to keep other teams off balance, because normally in the scouting process, you watch the TV copy in case you can hear anything that gets picked up on the mic, right? You can hear Cali Jerry on TV if you listen for it. So other teams are going to be able to hear that. They're going to see, oh, they called Cali Jerry here, and this is the play they ran, right? That team is going to take that. They're going to note it down. They're going to be ready. If they hear Cali Jerry in the next game, oh, they did this. So if they actually did their film study, then they would be anticipating another play, but that code play can change from week to week. So that's something that is very interesting, and it's another, tactic that you can use at this level of the sport. All right, now the last thing that we'll talk about in this video is just personnel groupings, and this is pretty standard in the sport. If you're not sure what personnel is, then it's just the different groups of players that are going to be on the field. And we can see here, they've got their Y is going to be their tight end. Their Z is going to be the strong side receiver. So the Y and Z are oftentimes on the same side unless there's an adjustment, right? Formation adjustment, like slot, that puts them on the other side of the formation. You've got the X primarily on the weak side. Then you've got halfback. F is the primary adjuster. So you can see in the different personnels, the F can be a fullback. They can also be a tight end. They can also be a wide receiver. So the F is going to be the player that gets subbed out often. So you saw in the picture that I showed you in the huddle, the F in that situation was Matthew Golden. So obviously, if another tight end comes in, Matthew Golden's going to be taken out. And that second tight end, whether it's Fitzpatrick or Musgrave, they're going to be put in as that primary adjuster. All right, then we have the personnel groupings. This is very, very standard. 21, 12, 11, 20, 10, 02, right? 01, 22, 13, and 23. Right, so this is very standard. Usually some teams, they'll name it, right? Like in the McVay system, they'll give a name to the personnel. Like I believe 11 is zebra. The Packers, they just call out a number, right? That's much easier. You put up a sign, what personnel you're going to be in, and that makes it much more clear for everyone. Pretty simple. We've got 21 personnel, 2 running backs, 1 tight end. 12 personnel, running back, 2 tight ends. So this number corresponds to the number of running backs and the number of tight ends. And that is just standard practice in football. Then just some minor things, adjustments in the play call. They can flip players at certain positions, Z and X. So the 2 outside receivers, if they use the first name, so say Romeo is playing the X and you want him to play Z the next play, in the play call, before you send it out, you would say Romeo, all right? And whoever is at the Z, say it's, Christian Watson, then you would say Romeo Christian. They would flip positions. If it was the last name and you wanted them to go to the F position, so say you wanted Christian Watson to be the F, the adjuster, you'd say Watson before the play call. Therefore, the QB knows who's supposed to be going where. Then you've got in 22 or 13 personnel, you'll tag the receiver as either the Z or the X to play, so that way they can line up properly. So just some small procedural things. All right, so I think that's enough for this video. That is just the basics. Next video, we would be getting into the formations. And I think that could be a little bit interesting. I don't think all of these formations are still used, but at least you get an idea of the Shanahan system, the West Coast style system on how they call formations and where they're expected to line up in terms of the small details. Let me know your thoughts if you enjoyed this, if you want more content like this. I know the community had asked for it, and I think it's an interesting idea to give you some insight into how a team operates and what we're seeing on the field and how it gets installed from a coaching perspective. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.